Well, Happy New Year, everybody.
Yes, sir.
For our team, our guys obviously came back right after Christmas, and they really did a good job preparing. Sometimes that time of year is a little worrisome as a coach just because it is a transition back. Nobody's here on campus other than our team and the women's team, but our guys did a nice job of preparing and putting in good deposits going into our game this past Monday. And now with that behind us, it's a new year, it's a new conference season, it's a new segment of our season. We open up and playing against one of the best teams in the country in Baylor, number 6 team in the country, playing really, really well, won a ton of games in a row. So it's exciting for us. Obviously our focus first and foremost is on playing our best basketball one possession at a time. On the defensive end, ton of challenges that Baylor presents with their offense. They're one of the more efficient offensive teams in the country. They've got terrific guards, and their bigs are really, really good at playing with efficiency and offensive rebounding and finishing around the basket. They really share the ball as a team. And then they also defensively have one of the better teams in the country. They've really ramped up their aggressiveness on the defensive end, led by Davion Mitchell. He does a terrific job of really spearheading their attack. So for us, these preparation days going into this game are extremely important for our guys to really put in a good deposit in terms of the work we do against each other in practice, and also the mental reps and understanding what exactly we have to do to go on the road and be successful in a hostile environment.
Questions? I think the guys they were really a good lesson last year of getting off to a good start in conference play, and that was a huge lift to win at K-State and then 2-0 with them. I mean, do you impart that to them as the importance of getting off to a good start, just like they have in the past?
Well, I think the biggest thing, the conference season is a marathon for sure. And if you look at the Big 12, over the past several years, everybody goes through twists and turns. And you want to be playing your best basketball at the end because it just, that's how college basketball works, and it puts you in position to do some great things in March. But at the same time, every one of these games really matters. When you go on the road in this league, you really have to play at a high level in order to win. Certainly that's doubly true when you're playing against a top 10 team in the country. So we want to play our best basketball, and if we do that, we think that's going to go into winning. We know that probably nobody in the Big 12 is going to go undefeated. It's a league where everybody takes lumps at different times. But these are games that a lot of times come down to your mindset and that of the other team. So we don't control theirs, we control ours, and that's where it starts. But certainly for our older guys, we definitely, Brian, do use previous years as learning lessons that we can learn. The guys did a really good job to start conference play last year, and we need to do the same this year.
Maybe you won't get the answer to this for a month or 2 months, but do you think these guys learned what they needed to learn from Providence? Because you did have that time away where everybody could kind of reflect on what happened and the response against High Point. Do you think they kind of learned, like, hey, if you don't approach a game the right way, this is what can happen to you?
Well, I think our guys responded really well between December 26th and the High Point game. But that being said, the truly learning the lesson means that you apply it in perpetuity, and that's hard for young guys. I mean, that's something that a lot of times it takes years and years to get to that point where it's like, okay, I got it. Our job is to give them the reminders that they need and to make sure that they understand this is crystal clear exactly who we have to be and how we have to be successful in this next game, in this case at Baylor. But certainly I thought hopefully the biggest lesson that our guys took out of the Providence game was we can prepare great. We can have practices where it's competitive against each other, but when you get out there on the floor, if we don't carry over and we don't have a higher level of fight, or at least as high a level of fight as we showed in practice, a day before, 2 days before, then that's not going to work. That's not a recipe for success.
You try to get into a routine on the road. How different is it going to Purdue, Madison Square Garden, and Providence versus going to Waco? I mean, how many things actually change? Because it's obviously so much shorter.
Well, the most important thing about going on the road is your mindset. And, you mentioned those opportunities that we've had so far this season. When we go on the road, you can see a look in our guys' eyes of, exactly where they are. And, I did think when we went to Purdue, it was a very, very connected approach of, we're here to do one thing. And you could see that on our bench. You could see that when guys subbed in the game or subbed out of the game. Obviously, the lesson you want to take from that is, well, let's do that every time. Again, with young guys, we've got to continue to hammer that home with them and get them to own that. Sometimes it does take a tough game or more than one tough game to help a guy understand there's no other way. So the mindset is what comes first. I was actually just talking to Andrew about the actual physical preparation as well, and he was just talking about when you go on the road it is different. He likes to get in here and home games and do a ton of extra stuff the night before and the day of, and there's certain limitations you have with that when you go on the road, but you just have to make it the best it can be from a preparation standpoint, and then control that mindset, because that trumps everything.
And now that you're 12 games in, do you have a pretty good idea of what rotation you want to use? Does that change because Big 12 plays here, or does it?
It could continue to evolve. I think we have a pretty good idea of, we've always kind of had a pretty good idea of our main guys, our top guys. Some guys have played better at different times. Some guys, these guys are human beings too, so sometimes guys have things going on in their lives that they're trying to work through, that they're trying to figure out. We want to have a presence out there from our guards first and foremost that sets a tone for our team. So right now, I guess the biggest change, from prior to the break our guys had to the High Point game and moving forward is Kamaka's playing a lot more. I felt like he was a guy who's completely committed to the team. He was a guy that does a phenomenal job in the offensive end of just moving the ball around and helping his teammates get shots, and that's something that we need. And so, he's played a lot more in our last game, and as long as he continues to be bought into Texas and making Texas be successful, he'll continue to.
Is he a good example to the younger guys of what it takes here to, even if you're not playing some, to continue on that?
I hope so. We try to use examples whenever we can with guys. Gerald Liddell is a good example of a guy who didn't play last year and worked his tail off during the year and, was able to earn playing time at the very end of the year and put himself in a better position going into this year. Obviously, he's still a real work in progress, but that has been progress for him since the beginning of his freshman year. Kamaka's a guy whose attitude has always been phenomenal, even when he's not playing. He's always been a leader on the bench, even when he's not playing. In practice, he's one of our most vocal guys. He got a 4.0 again. He just is a high-level person. He does things the right way. And when he goes out there on the floor, he's playing for Texas. And that's something that we really value. Hopefully it is a really good example for our guys.
Is he a guy that maybe you think not only get him some playing time, but try to get him some more shots? Either calling plays directly for him or?
Yeah, I think he's a guy that he makes a lot of shots in practice, and he has made shots before in games for us. Last year at Baylor, he did a nice job stepping in a similar situation, hadn't played.
He started that game, right?
And then he started. Dylan was sick. Snoop was out. And I thought he did a really good job. But I think for him, Brian, that the biggest key on the shooting side is to have an aggressive, confident, and loose mentality towards shooting the basketball. And if he's open, shooting it, and not having any level of hesitancy. You can't be a good player through avoidance, and for all of our guys, we want them to attack. Obviously, there are situational factors that we always want to factor in, and we've talked about this before. If there's a game where 5 possessions in a row we shot threes and missed, then now it's time to put the ball on the floor and get in the paint, or throw the ball in there to Jericho and attack. The high point game was our highest paint touch game of the year in terms of the ratio of possessions where we touched the paint first before we shot. That's been an emphasis, and that's something we want to continue to get better at.
You mentioned after the high point game you guys focused on trying to elevate the aggressiveness on defense. What specifically? Did you just want more
ball pressure?
Hands,
yeah, pressure on the ball, activity of our hands. We really didn't like the way against Providence we were just back, and sometimes there's a tendency on the part of players to not want to get beat on the dribble, or play not to make a mistake. But good teams are going to make you pay for that. Baylor's a great example of a team that they really thrive when they are able to do what they want to do on offense, and they do a good job moving the ball, sharing it with each other, getting to different sort of pick and roll actions, and then they've got multiple guards that can come off and attack. Jared Butler, I think, is as good as any guard in the league, and he's one of the guys on their team that really spearheads their pick and roll offense. So we've got to be aggressive against what they do.
Do you bring up at all last year's game at Waco with these guys? I mean, you guys were undermanned,
yeah,
the lead, and then they came back.
Well, I mean, we always use previous games, just to learn from. So I think there's a lot to learn from both of last year's games against Baylor. That being said, they have some of the same personnel. We have some of the same personnel, but they have a different team. They're doing things a little bit differently. We're doing things a little bit differently, but there's a lot to take. I think the aggressive mentality that our guys had going in there to start that game, even though we were down some guys, that's always a lesson to learn from. But the other lesson is it's a 40-minute game, and you've got to continue to keep your foot on the gas. And even when you get up, you have to. I mean, really, if you go back and look at that game, we're one stop or one basket away from kind of putting it away, but we didn't. And you got to give them credit. They did a really good job of making plays when they needed to.
That has to be the biggest lesson from that game in particular. Is you got the knife, you got to push it all the way in.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's what the best teams do. They're able to finish. And our guys, did a phenomenal job on the road of doing that at Purdue. That was a very hostile environment. So when you do it once, it says, hey, we can do it. Now it's a matter of, you got to do it again and again and again. And you have to put in the work in practice to have yourself even in position. And then from there, it's about really fighting one possession at a time and having the will to guard the pick and roll the right way, or execute the zone play the right way, or free throw block out, all those little things. Everybody wants to win, but do you have the will to do those things the right way?
Will Jace have a little extra comfort there, the way he played last year?
Ask him, he's right there. Jace has made a lot of progress, and he's a guy that takes a lot of pride in the way he shoots the ball. Our emphasis to him has actually been, on the defensive end, and playing with more aggressiveness. He led our team in deflections in our last game. He gave up 2 points the whole game, and for that reason, we named him the domino of the game, because we felt like combination of what he brought to our team from a defensive intensity standpoint, and then also the efficiency with which he played on offense was big. I'm sure going into the Big 12, a lot of teams are going to try to take him away. We want him to continue to be aggressive. He had a great drive the other night. That's a good example of, hey, when people are closing out on you, put that thing on the floor and create for yourself or your teammates. But he's he's coming. I mean, he's making progress. He's getting more violent with how he plays. He just got to take a few more steps with that, and he's really going to be in a great place.
Seems like on offense, the paint ratio has such a strong correlation to when you guys are efficient and successful.
Yep.
Do you find yourself, or you and Neil talk about maybe, do you juggle with being so hands-on with these guys, like, all right, let's call something that forces them into the paint, or do you have enough confidence after 12 games with those guards that they're gonna understand and they're gonna do it?
Well, it depends on the circumstance and the time. We actually have a call that we make that says we can't shoot until it gets in the paint. So that's extreme. You know, players, you know, want to play with freedom, and they you know, if Jace has a wide open three and we haven't touched the paint, you know, we certainly don't want him turning down a lot of those. But again, depending on the circumstance of the game, we certainly want to, you know, dictate that for our team. And we want, more importantly, our guards, Matt, Courtney, Andrew, to really lead the way by saying, hey, I want to be aggressive and attack and get in here.
Coach, any thoughts about the passing of former NBA Commissioner David Stern? He's sent a number of players to the NBA yourself.
Well, just as a big fan of the NBA, you know, it's an unbelievably big loss. He's a guy that, you know, when you're in that role, you're mostly behind the scenes. But the thing I remember most about him was, you know, he demonstrated such a passion for moving that league forward, you know, in so many ways. And, you know, he had a reputation for being, you know, pretty aggressive with what he did, but everybody respected him. And, you know, I think his legacy that he leaves is he made basketball, you know, so much more accessible around the world than it was prior to him. So it's a huge loss, and, you know, obviously thoughts and prayers are with his family.
Thanks all.
Thank you, guys.